Welcome back to another episode of the Liberated Woman podcast. I'm super excited that you are tuning in once again for another episode of Feminine Wisdom. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Trisha. She is the founder of Trisha C Design. And Trisha is a qualified crystal guide master, Reiki level 1 and 2 practitioner, essential oil practitioner. And aside from her business, Trisha is also a mother to 2 strong-willed daughters. That's what we like to hear, those liberated young girls that are home educated. And she's also a great advocate of gentle parenting. She's an ethos that has supported her in her own healing journey. So welcome, Trisha, to the podcast.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a pleasure to have you on, Trisha. And today we're going to be talking about how crystals can enhance your spiritual journey, enhance your spiritual practice. An awakening woman who's finding her path to liberation might want to use tools and guides to support her in her journey. And crystals might be one of the ways that she does that. So, Trisha, are you able just to tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into your love of crystals and becoming a crystal practitioner?
I actually suffered from a lot of anxiety and panic attacks, and my life completely changed when I incorporated crystals. It was actually a friend of mine who gave me a very grounding necklace to wear. And when I wore that necklace, my energy just changed. I felt this massive shift in me. I wasn't feeling anxious. I wasn't having panic. I haven't had a panic attack since. And it is so, I think it's just, I found the shift. And that was it. That was it. I got into crystals and I started researching, learning more, working with more crystals. And yeah, incorporated it into my business of creating individual pieces. And I think what I found with the whole crystal journey is that every single crystal is unique. And I have, in the past, I've always suffered from sticking out from the rest. And it took me a long time to embrace that individuality. And so that's what I've incorporated into my business, where everyone is unique and everyone gets a different piece. And I believe that every piece is made for someone in particular and just waiting to be picked up. So that's how I got into crystals. And they're very, very addictive.
Amazing.
Growing.
So what were you doing before someone gave you this crystal and it stopped your anxiety? Maybe share what crystal it was as well. What was the crystal?
It was a lot of obsidian, a lot of red jasper, a lot of citrine, amethyst. It was a mixture of crystals in that necklace. And yeah, I found that it helped me massively with my anxiety and just grounding. There's a lot to be said for just grounding yourself and being in touch with nature, and really realizing the power that, you know, you have within you, as well as incorporating and using tools and aiding with crystals and nature in itself, because all the crystals come from Mother Earth, and they're beautiful. So
Beautiful. So before someone gave you this crystal, like the mix of crystals that you mentioned, the citrine, obsidian, red jasper, what were you doing before that caused this anxiety that kind of led you onto this spiritual journey with the crystal?
oh, I was a lawyer in London, doing landlord and tenant legal work. Was there for 13 years, and then when my daughter started school, I gave up my career. I had 20 years of legal experience under my belt and gave that up to be a mother to my children, wanting to be with them. And then it was school, and wasn't really a big fan of mainstream school. And seeing how it affected my daughters, and we took them out of full-time education to home educate, and let them learn at their own pace, which is obviously a different story in itself.
And do they like to get involved in the crystals as well?
Oh, they love it. They absolutely love it. And I love that they're always out and about. They learn about the crystals from what I'm learning too. I don't think anyone can class themselves as an expert in crystals because there's so much to learn. And you learn it with experience more than, you know, just reading it out of a textbook. It's all very intuition based and energy, all about energies and how you're feeling, and intention. So, you know, there's a lot to know about crystals. Equally, it's very easy to get into it too. So yeah, so I was a lawyer before I started all of this.
Amazing. So what a journey from being in a very corporate world to coming into this more spiritual, holistic practice, and then being able to share that with your daughters, and, you know, coming out of the mainstream a lot more, and connecting, I guess, like you say, with your intuition and with your journey of what it means to spiritually awaken. So I'm curious to know maybe a little bit about your spiritual journey, or like how you kind of decided, yeah, I'm going to leave this corporate world behind. I want to open up into more of a holistic world. I want to bring my children into that space. I want to create a different paradigm for them through the work that I'm doing. So are you able to share maybe a little bit about your spiritual journey?
Well, I think my healing journey started first, and that started when I became a mother, because I was finding that there was a lot of triggers that I was getting from their own behavior. And so my healing journey started, which probably comes a lot from my own childhood. And then when I got into crystals, I think I explored more into spirituality, although I have been manifesting a long time, and truly believe that where I am in my life is exactly what I've manifested. Which is great, but there's so much more to manifestation than just following a process, and knowing that the power is within. And I think crystals have helped me to enhance my own spiritual awakening and enlightenment, in really being in touch with my inner self and my higher self and being on a higher dimension. It's amazing. It's so amazing. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, we still have our down days. We still get the negative thoughts, but it's what we do with them. And also forgiving yourself for having that as well. We're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, we're only human, aren't we? We're spiritual
Absolutely.
beings in a human body living out on this planet Earth and doing our best to navigate a constantly shifting and moving environment and moving world. It's moves at such a rapid pace these days that I think a lot of women who are in this awakening journey of liberation and trying to liberate themselves, it can become confusing. There's a lot out there, a lot of information, a lot of different therapies and practitioners and different modalities. And I guess it's just finding the thing that works for you in that moment. And, you know, one thing could work for you at one time and it might grow into a love and a passion, like yours did for crystals, like mine did for breath work, for ancestral healing, for holding space for women's circles and events. That's like my passion. Your passion is crystals. But I'm like so open to other healing modalities that might actually benefit me as well. I'm guessing you would as well. And it's kind of just, you know, like you said, like that discernment and that intuition and following what feels right for you. So if somebody is new to their awakening journey or their healing journey or their journey to liberation, and they come across somebody who's a crystal practitioner or somebody who's selling crystals, or they're kind of feeling drawn to explore crystals as part of their practice, where would you recommend they start in terms of maybe learning more about the crystals, or, you know, knowing which ones to work with? What would you recommend?
So I think it's really important to know that working with crystals it has been a great relationship between crystals and humans for a very long time. It's an ancient tool, really, in helping us to better ourselves, and improving on ourselves. And you can use them in so many different ways. that, you know, it's been in jewelry for centuries. It's you can wear it as jewelry, you can carry them around, you can meditate with them, place them on your chakras because they all resonate with your energy fields. You can do yoga with crystals on your mat, and there's so many different ways that you can use crystals, work with crystals. And I guess what a lot of crystal guides would recommend is you go for something you're drawn to. And that would be a great start. You know, you just see what you're drawn to. I find I do a lot of events where I do have stalls and I display all my crystals. I like people to hold and feel the energy, and purchase, and instead of buying online, because you can't. I think people can get the energy from buying online, but there's something to be said about just holding a crystal. And yeah, going for something you're drawn to, whether it's the color, the shape, polished or rough, or, you know, and then letting your intuition guide you, and hearing the crystal, as well as, so you know, you should treat your crystals as friends, really, and get to know each other, but then also have an intention of what you might want that crystal to help you with. And you can know that by sitting with it and just sitting and seeing what your intuition is saying to you and trusting yourself on that as well. So that's how a lot of crystal guides would recommend how you pick your first crystal. You can go for chakra bundles. So you've got each crystal, you've got a crystal for each chakra. And then you can pick and choose which one you want to work with on that day, how you're feeling. There's also a different method that I've been using recently, and it has proven to be quite accurate. I'd probably say 100% of the time, where I've been asking people to walk around and see what they really don't like. What are you not attracted to? What is the one that you don't want to pick up, that you don't want to even look at? It really does disgust you. And then let's discuss that crystal, because sometimes it's not what you want, but it's what you need. And it's a really good way of being self-aware.
I love that, because I always tell my clients, in fact, I even said it to a client yesterday in a session when she came for her breathwork session as part of her Liberated Woman journey. And she was like, what if I just don't feel anything tonight in the breathwork session? And I was like, well, you might not, but you're going to get what you need, not what you want. And it's always like with any of these things, you know, you can talk to the crystals, you can talk to the plants, you can talk to your breath, you can talk to your body, and you can say like, well, you know, manifestation, I want this and I desire that, and I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for that. But actually, like, you're always going to get what you need, because going straight to what you want might be that you need to integrate a shadow, or you need to integrate some kind of resistance, or you need to integrate like a wall that's of protection that needs to be cracked open. So I love what you said about that, because you know, say for example, you say to someone, well, walk around and see what disgusts you, and you pick a crystal that, or that person picks a crystal that perhaps is about personal power, and that's something that they're needing to call more of in, but they're resisting it because there's something about calling in their personal power that scares them, or like, you know, makes them feel like they're not good enough for that, or not worthy enough.
With the whole manifestation process as well, like when you try to manifest something and it doesn't come to you, the universe knows what you need at that moment in time, you know, and it's all about divine timing. And if that's not what you get, then it's because that's what you wanted rather than what you need at that moment in time. So it resonates with the whole manifestation as well. And I find that some people are not ready for that journey, and that's okay, but it gives you an idea of what you may need to work on next, you know, so giving you that self-awareness. And I would probably say it's been accurate 100% of the time that I've used that method, but 50% of the time is when people have actually bought that crystal. So that other 50% of the people are not ready, and that is absolutely fine, because you will eventually, you know, be ready to go into that and start your healing. But it has to be in your own time. So that's another method you can use when choosing crystals.
Yeah, I really like that, because I think there's two sides to that coin, isn't there? There's like, you know, when you're starting to awaken and go on this journey and you're starting to remove all the conditioning that you realize has been placed on you all your life, and you're trying to de-armor yourself and deprogram yourself to become more liberated and remember who you are. You need to be able to trust your intuition, have that discernment as part of the journey, because otherwise you can get pretty screwed over by a whole bunch of different energies and entities and people trying to take advantage of you in a vulnerable space. So like learning to trust your intuition and learning what that sounds like and feels like is super important. But equally, it's important, as you said, to have the awareness of, oh, what is it that I'm avoiding or resisting or suppressing? Because that's part of the journey to bring that up to the light, to be able to awaken and transmute it and alchemize it so that you can become more liberated. So I really like that and resonate with
There's
that.
crystals for everything. There's crystals to help you with your self-belief. There's crystals to help you with, you know, trusting your own intuition. There's crystals to help you with everything. And like when I have discussions with people at my events and stalls, if someone comes to me for anxiety, for example, I try to get to the root of the condition rather than the behavior itself. You know, it's very similar to gentle parenting, you know. So you're kind of, okay, but what is making you anxious? Because that's what you've got to deal with, not just the symptom. And so while, you know, you work on not being anxious or not having panic attack, it's why you're not trusting in yourself, and where's the lack of confidence here? You know, what are you lacking? Where do you need that energy? You know, there's another aspect of crystal healing where you may have too much energy in your chakra. If your chakra is completely imbalanced, so then you would have a contradicting crystal on there. You kind of follow the wheel of the color wheel. But yeah, it's just there's crystals for everything. And that's amazing, I think. You know, it's just come out of Mother Earth.
And for somebody who has never worked with crystals before, maybe could you explain, you know, one way that you might use them in your daily practice or in your daily journey or as part of a meditation or something? Like what's one way that's an easy way to kind of incorporate crystals into your day in an otherwise, you know, most women are living a very busy lifestyle, especially if they're mothers, they're working full time and they're trying to do all this stuff. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, you should have an hour practice in the morning. But for some people, it's just not possible to dedicate that amount of time. And then you guilt yourself and you shame yourself because you didn't practice in the morning. And it's trying to find an easeful way and finding what works for you. So if there was one kind of simple way that you would incorporate crystals into a daily practice and someone feels the call to do that, what would you suggest them to do?
Well, everyone sleeps at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone sleeps at some point. I think having something on your bedside table and just holding it for a few minutes before you fall asleep would be a good way to ground yourself and relax yourself. Because you're so, like you said, you're so on the go. I mean, when am I going to sit down and meditate? When is that going to happen? Or, you know, it's quite important to be able to put time aside for you. And I know that's not possible sometimes, but if you're, or even if you're sitting in front of the TV one evening, you know, just grab a crystal, just sit with it. And you can do that because in your subconscious, you're connecting with that crystal anyway.
What
Even
crystal would you recommend? So at nighttime, if you were to put one next to your bedside table, say someone's really sensitive to the energy of the crystals, obviously you don't want it to activate them at nighttime. Like, can you suggest maybe one or two different types of crystals if someone was to put it next to their bedside table? yeah, what specific crystals might be good for grounding or for sleep or for a depth of sleep or just more of a relaxation time?
I think it's really difficult to just recommend one general crystal because everyone needs something different. I mean, for example, I have had quite a few mothers. I've been talking to quite a few mothers, and I recommend a rhodonite for them because it's grounding as well as teaching you self-love. Or, you know, if people want to heal something in their past and go through that journey, then malachite, for example. But if you need something calming, I would recommend something for the heart chakra, which would be green or pink.
Mm-hmm.
And green is green is for healing and teaching you self-love, which is fantastic. Grounding, stability, like a red jasper, or I would say tourmaline. I love tourmaline.
I carry that in my bag when I travel, like it's in a little pouch, some black tourmaline. It's supposed to protect you, right, for when you're traveling.
Absolutely, protection, a very grounding. I have a tourmaline bracelet that comes with me everywhere I go. So tourmaline is a good one. Which is I probably, if there is a general crystal, I think I would probably say tourmaline actually. I found obsidian when I worked with obsidian, because obsidian is really good for grounding
Quite
and
heavy, that crystal, isn't it? Obsidian.
absorbing negative energy. But when I held it, I had a headache instantly. So it does vary on what is, you know, good for that person in particular. So yeah, if anything, I'd probably say tourmaline, but that's probably because I'm biased.
And if I know there's obviously like a whole issue around ethical crystals and making sure that you buy crystals from ethically sourced places and they're not, you know, mining in certain countries or mistreating the earth or the crystals or the people who are mining for them. If, you know, if I was to walk into a crystal shop or someone new on this path was interested in getting a crystal, maybe they hear this podcast and they're like, okay, great, I'm going to go and see what crystals are for me. And they walk into a shop, like, how can you tell if a crystal is authentic or ethically sourced? Like, what sorts of questions can they be asking around that?
I think that's probably a whole podcast in itself. Intuition, go with intuition. Don't be afraid to ask where it's from. And when we talk about stability, sustainability, when we think about it, we've got crystals in all of our technology. We've got it in our TVs, our watches.
Sure.
Does anyone actually ask
Valley.
where they're from? How has it been mined? You know, there are different aspects of ethically sourced. But I think if you were to go and buy a crystal, you want to know where it's from. And there are a lot of replicas, fake crystals out there. Rhodochrosite, malachite is very easy to fake. Some are lab grown as well. So if you're using it for healing, I mean, the lab grown crystals are great if they're going into technology because they can make them exactly how they need it to go. But if you're using it for healing purposes, then I would always say go for something natural.
Exactly. That's just a question. You know, if you go into a crystal shop, you just
Yeah.
ask you asked, you know, the person who's in the shop, and if they don't know the answer, I would maybe be a little bit dubious about buying the crystals and maybe just say, well, like, I'd really appreciate it if you could find that out for me and I'll come back and get it when
Exactly.
the answer.
But I would expect someone to say, I actually don't know, because I have a list of where all of my crystals come from. And some of them I know off by heart, but some I need to refer back to my list.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I don't know it off by heart at that moment in time, I'll be like, hold on, I'll go and have a look. And that's what you want someone to do, is I will find out for you, you know, not an issue. But when I think it's really difficult to say, I mean, there's a lot of the fake stuff that comes from China, but there's also a lot of good stuff that comes from China as well. So as much as, you know, it's really difficult if you're kind of, if you're worried about where it's from and how it's been mined. I think we probably need to take a step back and and think about what sustainability means to us. Because if you're wearing a Rolex watch, you know, there's probably a chance that it hasn't been mined ethically.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, the Samsung TV that you've got at home. We don't ask those questions.
Is there a way to tell, like with the fake ones, is there a way to tell it from the texture or the color or the, you know, the feel of it?
Yeah, so malachite, it's quite weighty. The fake ones will be lighter. They also, the banding when it's a fake will be a black banding around it, whereas actually the banding in malachite is all green. So yeah, there are different ways of knowing whether it's fake. Rhodochrosite is beautiful. It's very expensive. Malachite, rhodochrosite are very expensive naturally, so hence why you've got the fake ones out there. But rhodochrosite, you can tell by the color. It's, you know, it's and actually there's a lot of YouTube videos out there. If you wanted to see what was fake and what a real one looks like, you can just Google it and you'll be able to find a video on there to show you what a fake one looks like, you know, versus a real one. So yeah, that's a good idea to know whether it's fake or not. I think there's also, speaking to my suppliers in Africa the other day, and we're also talking about looking for a perfect crystal, you know, that doesn't have scratches or damages on it. And actually, and I'm going to quote him now because I think his quote was amazing, that it's basically the pursuit of perfection actually makes the industry more non-sustainable because everyone's looking for that perfect crystal, and it's actually a reflection of themselves. When they're looking for a perfect crystal, well, what are you trying to perfect?
Nature isn't perfect, is it? It's perfectly perfect, and it's as it is, and we are
Absolutely.
nature. So surely we're, you know,
So
we're just
out of a ton of material that's been mined,
yeah.
maybe, you know, 5 or 10% of that will be undamaged or, you know, AAA grade. So what happens with the rest of it? And I think it's really important that we go for more natural stuff rather than, you know, the polished or the man-enhanced crystals. So there's an element of sustainability in that as well. So yes, it is another podcast.
Yeah, totally. That's like a whole other podcast in itself. I'm
Yeah.
really excited because Trisha is going to be coming to my Next Awaken Your Inner Goddess event on the 30th of September. She's going to have a table selling her crystals. In fact, she's going to have 2 tables selling her crystals, a whole selection and a range. So if you're coming to that event, and if you're not, get your ticket because it will sell out. Trisha's going to be in the Goddess Market with her crystal table, with her table of crystals. And it'll be amazing for you to come and talk to Trisha and be able to do exactly what she just said, like either be guided by your intuition or find the one that doesn't, like the one that you're repelled by, and see what it is that you need to work through, because then you're going to be running a crystal workshop for us as well as part of the event. And again, people will get the opportunity to kind of maybe touch some crystals, hold some crystals, and feel what feels right for them, and learn a little bit more about how to look after their crystals. And I think that's going to be a really beautiful addition to this event. So if you're coming to that event, get excited because Trisha's going to be there. And if you haven't got your ticket yet, there are still tickets available, but get in there because the early birds have already sold out. So you can get in your ticket for the 30th of September at Norwich Yoga Central, and Trisha will be there as part of the beautiful Goddess Market. And I have one final question for you, which I ask all of my podcast guests, and that is, what does a liberated woman mean to you?
Freedom, absolute freedom, and being able to do what I want to do. Not form to society, and feel at peace within. I think, and I believe the power is within, and it's about feeling liberated within yourself, rather than outside.
Beautiful. I love that answer. Thank you so much, Trisha, for coming on today and talking about crystals and how they can enhance your spiritual journey. I have many crystals in my house, And actually, it's my partner, Josh, that really loves crystals. I call him the crystal kid because he just picks up a crystal and instantly feels the energy from the crystals. I'm slightly less connected to the crystal energy. I'm a bit more etheric in my energy. I'm more connected to people, or like the sky, or like more like a more oracular and psychic, but he's very earthy. He's in fact a triple earth in his astrology chart, so he's like super connected to like earth, trees, plants. He's a shaman. Crystals, like he'll pick one up and be like, it's talking to me, and like you feel it like straight away. And he loves orgonite, which is like the crystals mixed with other materials to kind of conduct like the negative energy, and we have a lot of them around our house, which is a whole other thing, but you can put them next to your router, next to your computer, next to your phones. And also just we take out orgonite everywhere, and wherever we go we put it in the space to kind of like clear the energy. He's like, oh, that's better, I can feel the difference. I'm less connected to that particular form of energy, but I think some people are more naturally connected to earth materials like crystals. And I'm excited to learn more about it.
And actually there's metals in there as well, metals and
gold as well.
Yeah,
so I'm really excited for you to come to the Awaken Your Inner Goddess event and share more of your wisdom and your knowledge with the ladies that come for the workshop to display your beautiful crystals. And thank you so much.
Thank you
coming on the podcast today. Thank you to those of you that listened and tuned in and joined us today. I look forward to tuning in with you again next week for another episode of the Liberated Woman podcast. Until then, have a magical day.